Welcome to the NLC Prep History of Surveying playlist. I've always told people, surveyors are like half detective with the 1 foot in history and the other half computer mad scientist with 1 foot in the future. Well, this playlist is all about the past, and I love it. We're going to give you a glimpse into Egypt, Rome, Old England, surveying in Colonial America. It's going to be great. This is my favorite playlist so far. So watch a few videos, and if you enjoy it, hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit subscribe and click that bell. Now we're going to advance about 2,000 years. We're going to go from ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt all the way up until 19th century America. That's a huge gap, but the second most important time in history to surveyors is the founding of this country. We think we showed up, there was a blank continent where Columbus sailed, showed up, put our flag down, and we've been happily ever after since. Sounds like a love story. But in fact, the history of our country is marked with wars and raids and all kinds of crazy stuff. Not only from the Native Americans, who had a huge population on North, Central, and South America before Columbus, but also the European powers that fought to, harvest the vast resources this continent had, and who really up until maybe 100 or 150 years ago were still fighting. Britain, France, Spain, Netherlands. Every major European power had a stake in the Western Hemisphere up until about, say, the low 1800s, mid 1800s. And as part of this expansion, really the primary reason why the U.S. won is because of the surveyors who risked their life to colonize thousands and thousands of miles of territory. And as you'll find out in a few slides, many of those surveyors did not survive the trip west. Today, we have surveying equipment that can locate a point on the Earth to the nearest 100th or even thousandths of a foot, and it's easy. I just rented a new Leica GS17 RTK with a robotic total station last month. Turned it on. Didn't even have to hit connect. Just turned the thing on, automatically connected to the network, and within like 15 seconds, I am measuring the Earth to the nearest couple hundredths of a foot. What an amazing piece of technology. And we're spoiled. We're used to this. If the battery life isn't very long or the screen's not big enough, we complain. And that's why there's such a instrument war between the major manufacturers like Topcon, Leica, Geomax, all these guys. But if you think about how it used to be, then it really shocks you. A good example is a surveyor named William Crawford. He lived from 1722 to 1782. He was 60 years old when he was captured, and he was actually burnt to death by Native Americans. They set him on fire and cooked him alive. Why did they have such a hatred for this guy? Well, the Indians observed him surveying their property, their tribal lands. And the Indians were so mad when he was caught with his instruments surveying, they captured him and they cooked him alive. This is known as the Ganutin Massacre. Another one. Here's a diary entry from the people who found this guy. On the fatal day, Captain Short chose his party for a week's survey. It included his son, who was 14, a worker, age 51, and the worker's son, who was 18. Finally, there were a couple of 17 and 18-year-olds. Harry Short, who had been the chainman for his father, was assigned to stay in the camp. But the other two parties took off on the virgin prairie into sections created for future occupants. Well, about noon on Wednesday, August 26th, 1782, the party saw wagons at Crooked Creek, about 8.5 miles, so and such, went to observe, and they found the bodies of all the survey crew. They had been killed and scalped by a group of Indians. Finally, our third story, surveyors set to work on October 8th, 1838, ignoring both a Kickapoo warning that they might be attacked and also the advice of a companion. And as the 25 surveyors reached a ravine east of Battle Creek in Navarro County, Texas, they were ambushed by 40 Kickapoo warriors and they were killed. And in fact, history books show that in the area there were over 150 Indian warriors active in that area of Texas. Wow! I'll tell you what, if you complain about your surveying job today, I don't know what to say. Because could you imagine going out and having the continual threat of being killed by Native Americans? Amazing. Even up to the 1950s and 1960s, many survey crews working for the government like the Forest Service and BLM and other private surveyors, they didn't go home every day. You know, they went to the job site, wherever it was, and they lived in tents for weeks or months at a time, whatever it took to get the job done. So we go home every night, and we really are spoiled because of the conditions we live in today. You know, you want to call your wife, pick up the phone, and you're on the telephone and, 0 seconds flat. Imagine getting married and then going off surveying months at a time not to see any of your family members. That's a tough business. And that's exactly what these guys did in the 18th, 19th, 20th century America. They'd go off survey for months or years at a time, and their family had no idea if they were even still alive. Amazing. At the time, shortly after the American Revolution, we had 13 colonies. But if you look at the situation in the late 18th century, we had the British to our north, we had the French and the Indians to our west, had the Spanish to our south. The United States was only a fraction of the North American continent, very small fraction. And pretty much every major European power, plus the Indians, were against us. So we were surrounded on all sides. And we had to figure out something fast, because the British had tried to take over the U.S. several times, most notably in the War of 1812. One of my most favorite phrases is called manifest destiny. Now, manifest destiny is the idea that white Americans, Anglo-Saxons, were divinely ordained, directed by God to settle the North American continent, to take it from the heathen Indians and to make it our own. And we laugh about this now. Hubris. But one contemporary author stated that it was the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. One major problem: if we are going to have manifest destiny and take over the United States and the North American Treaty in general, then it's time to move out the Indians. So the United States for over 100 years had the goal of either removing or destroying the entire Native American population of North America. In fact, President James Polk, who served from 1845 to 1849, is the same president who presided over the war against Mexico in the Mexican-American War, got a huge piece of territory, and pretty much the entire modern-day Southwest, which we've taken over. He also resolved the boundary dispute between Great Britain and the United States, which had been going on forever, since I think 1815, 1820, and he negotiated the Oregon Treaty of 1846 with Britain. So James Polk Just that one president took over 3 major blocks of land you see in this diagram. And don't even get me started about Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory. He absolutely believed we were entitled to this whole country, and that's what we did. We took it with guns and pickaxes, and most importantly, we took it with transits, because we went out, not only got it, but we surveyed it, and we sold it, and we transported millions of Anglo-Saxons from the East Coast all across the U.S., and we basically took it by adverse possession.